off, I'll just like to ask you to tell us a bit about yourself and like your career journey so far. So we can start with Wumi.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Omowunmi Omidiji. I don't want to say I used to be a lawyer. I'm still a lawyer, through and through. I was in law for 10 years before I moved to product. Did in-house, worked with law firms as well, professional service firm, helped set up a couple of tech companies as well, worked on transactions in tech, investment readiness for fundraising, due diligence for fundraising as well. So I've been very familiar with the space, tech space, I think consciously since 2016, 2017. So I would say that I had started establishing a relationship in the tech space. And also I had worked with an advertising tech company in 2015, Street Digital Motions. So that kind of like, I'd always known I would go into tech. Actually, my goal is to own my own tech company. But I thought it would be great to actually just have that experience from a product perspective, because I found out that a lot of, without disrespect, a lot of CEOs are very ignorant when it comes to product. And I don't want to be that person that is doing ODD, organ-driven development, where you're just, talking a lot of things that you have no understanding about. Maybe you saw it online, you read Medium, all of a sudden you're a product person. So that was what led me to this.
Yeah, I think that shows that there are opportunities for everyone, regardless of your background. So Omowunmi said she was a lawyer, but now she's product lead. I know there are a couple of lawyers in the house. Is there any lawyer here? Can you raise your hand if you're a lawyer? So yeah, this is what you could be in the near future too. All right, so Adesola, can you just tell us a bit about your background and your career as well?
Yeah, of course. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be speaking to you all. In terms of my background, so I studied computer science in uni, and you think that software engineering is maybe the only thing you can do. But kind of as you mentioned, there's a whole world of tech beyond just being an engineer. And so after I graduated, I spent some time as a product manager at Google for quite a while, and then ultimately decided to go the more startup route and focus specifically on this ecosystem. And then last year, I joined Okra, doing product work there as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities in tech beyond just engineering. And if you find that you have different skill sets, and you find that you enjoy strategy or product development, or thinking through what's important for users and how to create a really good user experience, there's a ton of different things that you can do, even with a tech and engineering background.
Right. So yeah, Adesola just said that beyond software engineering, there are a lot of opportunities for you in tech. So I just want to ask, like what can make me irresistible to employers? So I'm here, I want to get a job. What are some qualities that will make me irresistible, that they're like, I must hire this person? And if I don't have these qualities, what can I do to get them? So we can do two parts. So maybe Adesola, say what makes me irresistible, and then you can say, what can I do if I don't have these qualities?
Yeah, what makes you irresistible? I think number one, just being prepared for the interviews. I think oftentimes people don't, and I think even pointing to the last session that just happened, taking the time to really prepare, making sure that you're able to demonstrate your skills, able to kind of speak to the work that you've done, I think is super, super important. And just making sure that during the interview you shine, and that you're able to answer the questions well. I think beyond, of course, I think one thing that was even touched on the last session that I think is really, really important is just like how you communicate and some of those soft skills. So I see people who are extremely qualified, and then they're almost confused, like, why didn't I get the job? But you also have to demonstrate that you can be a good team player. You have to demonstrate that you're willing to learn, that you're willing to work with others, that you're willing to rise to the occasion when there are challenges. And so, yeah, I think it's not just focusing only on those hard skills of like what technical skills I have or things of that, but also remembering like how do I demonstrate to them that I'm a pleasant person to work with and I would be a great addition to the team. So I think also focusing on that is really where you become irresistible. When people can walk out of the interview and say, I want to work with this person because they seem cool, they seem down to earth, and like I can tell that they're going to do a good job.
So what are some things, Wumi, that you think that, like if I'm seated in the audience right now, and Adesola has just said, oh, show that you're pleasant, show that you are a team player, but then I don't know how to do that. Like, what are some things you think I should do as someone in the audience to demonstrate that I'm irresistible and I'm of value to your company?
I would say, first things first, know yourself. It's important you play to your strength. A lot of times people try to, because in the end, when you are part of a team, the reason there's balance is because you're not all the same people. And a lot of times we try to force some things, it wouldn't work. So I'll give you a good example. I mean, because of my background in law, it's a no-brainer. My communication is on point. Even when so I started working, I branched into product management, working with Curacell as an intern. But the truth is, I grew really fast. After I left there, I just skyrocketed because the first thing I did when I got there, I actually had meetings with all of my team members, like the engineers, and we had like 2 different products. My own product and another product. I met with all the engineers, trying to understand them, trying to know what we could do better from the product team and all of that, just to get a sense. The first thing, what that does, while it might seem like, oh, you're doing a bit much, what you're doing is you're bringing down a barrier. Because as a product manager, you're working with different people. And to be honest, everybody's on guard. They don't know you from anywhere. And it's like, maybe there's something weird about a design. I'm talking to the UI UX designer. I'm like, oh, do you think we can do this? And the person looking like, oh, why do you think so? And they're all defensive. I'm like, okay, wahala. Because the truth is, we're all on the same team. So what I did initially was I had a meeting with all my team members. At the time, the head of product had just been hired. They thought I was the head of product because you have to own some things. It's important you have that. There's a reason you were hired. That's the first thing. So whatever you're doubting, I know the imposter syndrome is very real, but you have to keep telling yourself you were hired for a reason. Now, another thing is, how do I communicate with my team? Because most tech companies are trying to be agile, right? And you're probably using the Scrum framework. And the truth is, you kind of have to work together. It's interdependent. You're not working in silos, do you understand? So it's important you establish a relationship. Maybe not the whole company. I mean, you don't need to be popular, but people you're working with. Because think about it, if I have a better relationship with this person, it will make my life better. It will make the work better. Sometimes you will drop the ball. By the way, you will drop the ball a couple of times, and it's okay. Because the truth is, when you have a team, and you guys know you have each other's backs, you will know how to balance things. Do you understand? So there's that. There's also the fact that, I mean, when I came in very aggressive, I will say that, because, I mean, I'm not new to the workforce, so I understand, especially when you worked in the traditional workforce, the tech space is very different. So I already had done research before I even started working. Like, okay, I even did training in data analytics, because if I'm doing product analytics, I should be able to have some sense into it. Then I had agile training because I needed to understand some things. Now, because I know I'm very good with strategy, business, and all of that, I knew that was my strength. But what were my weaknesses? I assessed it and started building. I didn't rush myself, and I opened myself up to learning, because there's that. Because a lot of people try to feel like, oh yeah, but this is what I'm trying to say, like I'm right. The truth is, anybody can be wrong. Even the CEO can be wrong. Do you understand? Anyone can be wrong. And in the end, if they can see that you're willing to learn, the next time you are trying to tell someone that, oh, what do you think about this? Their defenses will be down, because they know it's a symbiotic thing. They know that you're willing to learn. They're also willing to learn from you. And that's how you grow. Especially in product management, you can't know everything. You're constantly learning, no matter what level you are at. You're constantly learning. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Right. So I'm hearing that you should always be open to learn, assess your weaknesses, and also be friendly, right? Talk to all the engineers on your team, like Wumi did. All right, so I have a question. So many people, when they got their first jobs or second jobs, they got it because I need to have a job, right? And so career growth is something that then comes later. They start thinking about it later. So when should I be thinking about career growth, and what should I be thinking about? So I'm already in this role. How do I make progress? Like, how do I move up the ladder and ensure that I don't stay stuck at one place and just, like the question that the compare was asking, how do I ensure that I actually keep this job, not just keep it, but I'm actually advancing in my career? Adesola, if you could speak to that.
Yeah, in terms of career growth, I think it should be something that you're constantly thinking about, right? Always thinking about, how can I improve? As we mentioned, to like think through like what are your weaknesses, what are the skills that you want to continue to build, and like where do I see myself going? So I think for me, like career growth is something that I always thought about, and like where do I ultimately want to get to? What industries do I like? What are my skill sets? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And I think those are the things that you always want to kind of be assessing. You want to constantly be having kind of self-reflection with yourself and constantly being like, okay, how can I, get to where I want to go? So I think that's first and foremost. And then I think when you're in the work setting, feedback is super, super important. And I think even if you don't have managers or coworkers that are giving you feedback, seek that feedback, right? Ask them, what are, the ways in which I can improve? What are skill sets you think I can build to better further my career? Make sure that you're having that constant dialogue and seeking mentors even in the workplace. And then I think also another thing is attending things like this and even putting yourself in the space, learning from others, kind of seeing people who like, wow, I really admire their journey. How did they do it? Networking, really building those relationships, I think are really important as well. One thing that I've realized oftentimes is that opportunities come from people, right? And they don't necessarily just come because you did this certain class or you scored the top, for an exam or something, right? Oftentimes it's really about knowing people and building those relationships. And so really investing in other people and being like, okay, here are some people that I can meet, here are some events I can attend to put myself out there and to make sure that, I'm seeing other opportunities for growth. Because the tech space is ever evolving, right? There's new startups all the time, new technologies all the time. And so you have to make sure you're kind of in the pulse of that to really propel your career forward and to also think about like what other things you could be doing. So for example, when I even started early on in my career, I didn't know about product at all, right? Like when you study engineering or you study computer science, everyone talks about, just being a software engineer, but no one really talks about like UX, UI design, product, UX research. People don't really often talk about the other roles that support in the ecosystem of actually, building a product and taking something from an idea to in front of users. So it was even through networking, building relationships, and like meeting others that I was like, oh, okay, there's actually so much that you can do. And then I even recognized in myself that, hey, product is even a better alignment of the skill sets that I have and the type of work that I enjoy. I'm not someone that likes to sit at the computer and code all day. Like, I'm someone that likes to talk. I like to think about the strategy, the high level. I like to work with others to come up with like the plan, to come up with the roadmap for how we're going to get things done. And so I was able to, through relationships and just through networking and, doing more research and immersing myself in the space, I was able to even see an opportunity and a field for myself that was even better. So I think that's the most important thing, is like really just kind of having that constant dialogue and then making sure that you're in dialogue with others to see the opportunities and to really be on that journey with yourself within the broader ecosystem.
Right. So what I'm getting is that you should have constant dialogue with yourself to know what you want to do, where you want to go, but beyond just talking to yourself, also speaking to people. And like Adesola said, if you are here, you are right? So being here is a step towards career growth. The people that you are meeting and talking to, those will help. And also, I got that you should seek for feedback, right? So where you're working, seek for feedback. Even if people are not going to give you that feedback, actively seek for it and actively invest in the power of relationships. So I have another question for Wunmi. So honestly, a lot of the motivation for working in tech or growing your career in tech is the money. So beyond the money, what's a good reason to want to propel my career forward? Like, if I'm only pushing towards the money, will that get me very far? Is that a good strategy if I'm just chasing the money? Is that good? Or should I also be thinking of something beyond the money?
I'll say again, be true to yourself because some people really money is their motivation, and it's okay if that's all pushes you. Like if they tell you, okay, we're going to pay you $150,000 for annually, and you need to learn how to code. Some people will learn under that pressure and earn that money, and I think it's okay. Like own it with your chest. But also, if you're the kind of person that you're very passionate, you want to pour yourself into your work, you want to. So I'm the kind of person that I want to pour myself into my work. I can't work somewhere you're going to box me or you're talking anyhow. And again, this kind of things, you'll be amazed how it messes with you mentally because you're going to spend time trying to keep your job rather than doing your job. And that's very toxic. So for me, it's like, okay, what motivates me? It's, yeah, the money is good because really living a baby girl life, it doesn't come cheap.
Yeah.
So you have to be real, like, okay, what are you aspiring to get to? You have to be real with the fact that where are you right now? Because I said I transitioned into tech. I started as an intern earning 30K. And yes, you might think, oh yeah, she was working before. So, but trust me, dollar is going up. Doesn't care how much you have in the bank. It doesn't care. Do you understand? Imagine if I used to go and hang out at certain places. Me, where are you? Oh no, I work remotely. Because the truth is that the money is no longer aligning. So I had to make that sacrifice to say, you know what, I need to see. Because yes, I knew some things already in products. But like I needed to show, and I was very, very intentional. I literally made a list of the companies I wanted to work with. I put the word out there, and I joined communities. I joined AfriSplash, people in products, product managers, Africa, product school. I joined all the communities. So much so that even when they had like an open source opportunity where they were not going to pay a dime, I signed on. I got the job done. Where they were looking for people to do like a short, what's it called? I was always jumping at opportunities because you'd be amazed how when you're working right now, and it's something I learned from law, because while I was in law, I mean, yes, I was representing clients and all of that. When you're in-house, you tend to be confined to what your company is doing, and you can't really like do other things. So I learned fast that if you want to be vast, you need to put yourself out there. So I came with that mindset. I was very conscious. I put the word out there because yes, even if you know someone in tech that could help you, it's one thing for them to put the word for you. It's one thing for you to actually, it's one thing for them to open the door for you. It's one thing for you to get through. So your interviews, like they said earlier, I mean, I don't even need to speak on that because they talked about everything. So doing proper research about why you're doing it. I won't lie to you, for all my interviews, I was upfront that, see, I want to get to this position. I want to own a tech company. I want to see how things are done from the customer tech and product technology perspective. I want to be able to work with these stakeholders. Yes, I have that skill of stakeholder management, but in terms of strategy as well, because recently we were looking at our products because we're trying to raise, and we realized that, oh, what we thought we had in mind is not scalable. And we're like, okay, this is not fancy to investors. So on the spot, we had strategy sessions trying to figure it out. And guess what? That birthed a number of features that align with our product vision because our job is to make sure we're still on course with our product vision and also to push us up further and also ensure that we can actually break into other markets beyond Nigeria. So that also came in. But for me, it's like, while I'm doing these interviews or I'm talking to people, I need to show them what exactly I'm bringing to the table. So constantly, I show that, but I'm also aware I'm giving you value. It's not a charity case. They didn't hire you because, oh, they felt bad for you. Whether you like it or not, they're getting something from you, and that's the truth. So you have to ask yourself, okay, I wake up in the morning, I'm having chest palpitations. Is it worth it? They're paying me 250K. Yes, you have bills, but you're losing your mind. It sounds crazy, but the truth is there are other places that you'll be valued. You might now have a plan, an exit strategy that, you know what, okay, I give myself till so period, and you are aggressive with putting your CV out. Sorry, if there are other employers here, it means that if you're not well, you're not treating your staff, or you need to check yourself, because really there are many people that would want to hire your staff in a heartbeat, because owning a business, one of the major problems about owning a business is getting an A team. And a lot of people are looking for that. A lot of companies, especially in tech, By the way, that shocked me when I came to tech. There's no loyalty in tech. Oh. No loyalty. Everyone, sharply, you move fast. So it's like, okay, another person, imagine you going into an interview and they say, thank you so much for your feedback, this, that, oh, really appreciate this. And you're looking like, is it me? What, your workplace, they're telling you, can't you see? Do you even look at what, do you think at all?
What are some of the red flags? Like, if I see how do I know that this is a toxic workplace? Like, if I'm not there yet and I'm trying to get there, what are some red flags or some things to look out for that, oh, I won't be valued here? Do you have any tips on that?
I would say, so there are a lot of things you will not see at the beginning during interview. It's just like dating. You're coming, your first date, you're all well and proper. But the truth is, when you get in there, if you're not approachable, that's a problem. So I'll use myself as an example. My present team, like a minimum of I'm probably like 10 years older than like a lot of people there. And it's like, you will not know because the first engineer I had a conversation, we just for 2 hours, talked about work, talked about NYSC, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh yeah, so I was in law for 10 years. And he was like, what? Because he had been saying, babe, you know how far, babe. He just paused. He was like, what? Are you serious? He went to LinkedIn to check, I think. And I was like, no, for real. But I maintained that relationship because it's important your boss, your colleagues are approachable. Because you want to work in a place where they'll foster your ideas. Because beyond your role, you need to be able to birth new things. You need to be able to build yourself beyond how you came in. Not every time if you're working in a place where you're constantly doubting what you have done or what you're doing, that is a sign. If you're working in a place where you are not scared to take ownership, accountability, because the truth is you will mess up. I keep saying you will mess up. But in an environment where you're allowed to actually be yourself, bring things forward, and even though they might not go for your idea, but you know that you can always you can thrive. It's important to know that wherever you are, where you're excited to go to work, you're not feeling some kind of way, you're not spoken to anyhow, because in the end respect is important. I realized in tech, you're in a meeting, everybody's in effort. I cleared people like, come, I understand that people are used to this. I'm a lawyer, and I'm not gonna lie. Like, I understand if you're trying to express yourself, it's okay, but if you're upset about something, you're talking to me, you better come correct, because everybody's meant. That's the reality. I'm sorry, I'm just being blunt. Everybody is not okay. But the truth is, how do we both foster a great relationship? Respecting each other is important. I don't care if you're my boss. Because the truth is, down, up, down relationship, respect is reciprocal. It's not by age. It's not by position. You hired me for a reason. If you could do it yourself, you will not hire anybody. And I think everybody needs to arm themselves with that mentality. I'm not now saying that you will now say, because there's some things that happen now that you just drag some people on maybe email. There's a way you can communicate in a very corporate way that will even earn you respect. It's very important. I know now everyone is all about, I need to check you. I get that. And that's why we have the corporate lingo, especially if you worked in traditional corporate world. There's a way I can tell you that you're not thinking well. And you probably have gotten through Third Milan traffic and reach you and be like, that was what she told me. Oh. Do you understand? So it's important that you position yourself, even if you don't have confidence, fake it till you make it. Because you want them to always come to you. Like, they will trust your job. Over time, this thing will happen and you build that confidence. But if you're in a place where your thoughts are not respected, they always trample on whatever you do, and listen to yourself, listen to your body, listen to your mind. If you feel like you wake up in the morning, you are waking up tired, I've been there. As a sign, just take a step back.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. So I think one thing we can get from this panel is the intentionality that comes with career growth. So Wumi said she wrote a list of all of the companies that she wanted to go to. She mentioned that she spoke to all of the engineers on her team at the time, so that we should be very intentional. I think one thing for me is that career growth is not just going to fall on your laps. It's not just going to happen. It's only the number of years that changes. If you don't change, you're going to be stuck there. you see that you spent a lot of years there, but you're still here. So I think we want to ensure that we are not just advancing in age, you're also advancing in your skills, in your relationships, in how you relate with people. So Adesola, about the money or purpose thing, like what do you think? Is money an enough motivation, or it should go with something else? Or what do you think generally about working in tech?
Yeah, so of course, money is one of the glamorous things about tech, one of the big benefits and perks that people talk about. But specifically for me, and I think what I've seen over the course of my career, like money is not everything. So, I think some people look at my career and they think I'm a bit crazy for leaving like a very big tech company.
By the way, Adesola left Google to come to Okra.
But yeah, I think a lot of people look at me and, they're like, why would you ever do that? Or, and I think it ultimately comes down to a lot of what Wumi said around just like actually enjoying the environment that you're working with and actually caring about what you work on. So I think oftentimes, when you are just chasing money, what you ultimately will find is like after a couple years, after a couple months, like that money doesn't necessarily make you want to do your job well. It doesn't necessarily make you excited about the things you do. As soon as that 5 p.m. mark comes or whatever, you're dashing out of the office, right? And I think when you really, begin to enjoy your career is when you look at like the purpose of what you're doing. And so for me specifically, I've always been about, I want to solve tough challenges, I want to solve tough problems, and I want to care about what I'm working on, and I want to feel like what I'm working on is making a real impact. And of course, I think like there's a lot of cool things you can do at Google, but that's a huge company. They're very settled. You're one fish in a very massive ocean, right? But when you take the leap and you're working at a startup and you're able to, work on just amazing things, you're able to have a lot of like authority and leadership in the things that you're working on, have amazing opportunities to influence like the long-term strategy and to like, pivot quickly when you need to pivot quickly. So I think for me, it's all about purpose ultimately, because like the money will ultimately not be enough. And then there will get to a point where you're just like, what am I doing this for? And so I think if you're able to bridge the two, that's when you, I think, are ultimately fulfilled by your career and you actually are excited to do the work and you're excited to come to conferences and you're excited to meet people, is like actually when you enjoy what you're doing.
So I'm getting that it's important to enjoy what you're doing, like Wumi said, enjoy what you're doing. Money is a good motivation, but it's not the only motivation. I mean, I'm sure that if money was your motivation, you'd not have taken the 30K intern job after working many years already. So money is important, but I feel like what they have said is not the only thing. It's a great benefit, not gonna lie, but it shouldn't be the only thing. You should genuinely enjoy what you do. So I mean, just as final words, like Wumi, any final words, any parting thoughts that you think that we should know about like growing our career in tech?
I would say that I think you should be able to know why you're doing it and where you'd like to reach. And it's okay if you find out, like in the middle of it, you find out that it's not for you. Like, it's very much okay. I know that Nigerian parents are not big on that, but if anything, I think we've kind of passed that. So, but what I would say is, don't be too, what's the word now? It's too quick, right? Ask yourself, okay, why don't I like this? Why is it that I don't feel fulfilled? I'm not happy? Because it might not be the career path, it might be the place you're working at, right? Also, if it's like maybe you're someone that likes strategy and all, and you're working on data, you're always like doing data cleaning, mining, and it's like, okay, this is not for me. That's like a sign. So do your research and try to see what's the closest things to what you have or what you like to learn, that when you think about it, you feel some kind of happiness inside of you. You're hungry for it, because that's very important. If you're very hungry for it, it's a good thing, because even when you start the job, you're constantly learning, you're constantly building yourself. Then another thing is, I know a lot of people think coming to tech, you need like technical skills. You don't need to start out like as that, Because me too, like I was very, SQL, hey, well, when the headache was real, I'm like, calm down. So I had to play to my strengths, like I said earlier. And product management just gave me the aerial view of what I needed because, again, I have a purpose. I knew what and I told myself, you're either here for 3, max 5 years, even maybe less than 3 years. I told myself because, again, I know why I am doing this. The why is always a constant. So when you know you're not sure, you're having doubts, and you're feeling some kind of way about what you're doing, ask yourself why. Ask yourself, the reason you came into this, is it no longer important to you, or is it still important? And even the way you're feeling, why are you feeling that way? If you're able to walk through, it's a psychological thing, basically. If you're able to walk through all those things, you have your answers, and you cannot create, I'm about to say something very serious, you create a roadmap. By the way, when I was coming into it, I did create a roadmap for the year. Really. I knew I was going to start a job in January. I didn't know how, but I knew that, see, I'm not smiling on these streets of tech. And I'm taking it violence all the way. I got in. I said I was going to start my Medium. I said I was going to start contributing on Tech Cabal. Like, I wrote out many things. I did the whole spreadsheet with colors and everything. I can be that muscular,
I
yes.
need to see you after.
So I was very planned. Like, I planned it, and it's important to go back to it because what that does, it sounds very serious. It's to ask yourself, reflect. Am I on track? Is this still what I want to do? So when you see, because sometimes we get carried away with what we're doing that we don't even look back and assess. Once you're able to assess and you feel good about it, oh yeah, I'm actually on track, it will give you the answer you're looking for, whether to go ahead or whether to stop and actually look for something else that works for you.
Thank you very much for that. So Wumi is saying that you should like have like smart goals, because I found that what you can't measure, you can't improve. So if you can't measure it, if you can't say, by January, I need to do this, I need to have achieved this, you're never going to get better at it, really. So I know some people have questions, but unfortunately, we are pressed for time. So if you have any questions, speakers may be around for a few minutes, you can ask them that. So I'll just take final words from Adesola, and then we'll close.
Yeah, no, I think Wumi did a really great job on that. I think being in constant self-dialogue is super, super important. Being intentional, right? I think oftentimes we're looking for things to fall into our laps, but like being very intentional about your goals, what you want to achieve, the relationships that you build, the ways in which you seek to constantly improve yourself. And then I think also just I think one of the biggest things that I've learned over time is like always be willing to learn, right? I think oftentimes it's like, okay, once I have this skill set, I'm an expert, that's it. But there is truly no ceiling in terms of how much you can learn. And so I think one thing that's really incredible at tech is just how it's constantly changing. And so I think, as you think about your career in tech and breaking into tech in general, like be willing to learn. Like there's going to be new skill sets. There's going to be things that, you didn't really discover about yourself that you were like, oh, okay, I need to work on this. There might be strengths that you didn't really know you had. And it's like, oh, okay, like, wow, like I realized like I really do like analytics in a way that I didn't realize. So maybe I should take a data science class and like, work on this. So yeah, just be really like open to learning and open to exploring all the opportunities that may come, and recognize that like nothing, like you're never stuck, you're never necessarily trapped, right? Especially in the world of tech, there's so many things that you can do, and there's so many companies looking for really, really great talent. And so, it's like a journey that you can really go on with yourself and say, okay, like if I know this is something I really enjoy, or if I know this is something I could enjoy, like let me explore that and see where like my career can take me. So I think those would be my parting words, is just like be open to the opportunities that can come, and like be willing to learn, because you'll surprise yourself along the way as well.
Thank you very much for such an engaging session. So we're done. Any other questions that you have, you can meet with any of the speakers after the session. Thank you.